Okay, Wildcats. Today we're looking at journal page 48, solving square root equations. Solving square root equation steps. Step 1, isolate the square root. Step 2, raise both sides of the equation to the power of 2. Step 3, simplify and solve. Step 4, check for extraneous solutions. If you would, finish up your notes. Okay, now your notes are complete. Let's take a look at the examples. All right, example number 1. And let me see if I can brighten the screen just a hair. There we go. All right, solve each equation. Remember to check for extraneous solutions. Okay, example 1. The first step is we're going to square both sides. Okay, well, the square unsquare roots the square root, so that's 2x equals 6 squared is 36. Okay, divide both sides by 2. X equals 18. Okay, so now let's check the solution. So we're going to substitute 18 back into the original equation. So the square root of 2 times 18 equals 6. Let's fix that square root a little bit. All right. Now, 2 times 18 is 36, so you have the square root of 36 equals 6. Well, the square root of 36 is 6, so 6 equals 6, so this checks. Okay, now let's take a look at example 2. Okay, now, first step is you want to isolate the square root, so we need to add 3 to both sides. So that's, and we're going to rewrite this to 1/2 as a square root. So that's the square root of 2x equals 8. Okay? And the reason why we can go from here to here is this. So x to the 1/2 is equivalent to 2 roots of x to the first power, which we can simply write as a square root of x. All right? Now our next step is we're going to square both sides. The square unsquare roots the square root, so you're left with 2x equals 64. Divide both sides by 2, so x equals 32. Okay, now we're going to check. So we're going to substitute 32 back into the original equation. So that's 2 times 32 to the 1/2 power minus 3 equals 5. Well, 2 times 32 is 64, so this is the square root of 64 minus 3 equals 5. Well, the square root of 64 is 8. 8 minus 3 is 5, so 5 equals 5, so this checks. Okay, let's take a look at example 3. Okay, now we need to isolate the square root, so we're going to cross multiply. So this is actually 4 divided by 1. So the square root of x plus 5, excuse me, times 1 is just the square root of x plus 5. And then 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, now we're going to, and I'm going to fix the square root here a little bit, straighten it out a little bit. Okay, we're going to square both sides. Now the square unsquare root is the square root, so that's x plus 5 equals 12 squared is 144. You're going to subtract 5 from both sides, so x equals 139. Okay, now let's check. So we're going to substitute 139 back into this. So that's the square root of 139 plus 5 divided by 3 equals 4. Well, 139 plus 5 is 144. The square root of 144 is 12. 12 divided by 3 is 4, so 4 equals 4. So this checks. Okay, let's take a look at example 4. Now, we want to isolate the square root, but there's no need to isolate it from. So what we need to do is square both sides. And when we square, we're going to square this. So we're going to square this and this. Now, x minus 4 squared is, I think I'm going to add one extra line here of work. Ooh, that was a terrible line. We're going to add an extra line. Let's try to make it a better line. You know what? All right, take it back. Let's see if we need an extra line. If we need one, we'll add one. If not, we won't. So x minus 4 squared is x minus 4 times x minus 4 equals, when you square the square root of x minus 2, that's just x minus 2. Okay? Now, yep, we're definitely going to add a line and see if I can add a better line this time. Yeah, that'll work. All right, so now what we need to do is FOIL this. So x times x is 1x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 4 is a positive 16 equals x minus 2. Now, in order to solve, we need everything on one side. So we're going to need to subtract the x and add 2 to both sides. Notice I'm going to subtract the x with the x, and I'm going to add the 2 here. And let's add another line. Okay, now that's x squared. That's minus 4. Minus 4 is negative 8. Minus 1 is minus 9x. And then 16 plus 2 is 18. Equals, cancels, equals 0. Now, to solve, we're going to factor this. We know 2 parentheses. We know x and x makes x squared. Now, we need to find all the combinations that multiply to give you positive 18 and combine to be negative 9. So we know that negative 1 times negative 18 is positive 18. Negative 1 minus 18 is negative 19. That doesn't work. Okay? So now negative 2 doesn't work. Negative 3 times negative 6 is positive 18. Negative 3 minus 6 is negative 9. This works. So our factors are x minus 3 and x minus 6. Okay? And probably add one more line. Okay? So now we said x minus 3 equal to 0 and x minus 6 equal to 0. We add 3 to both sides. X equals 3. And leave for space. X equals 3. And x equals 6. And we want to leave space because we don't know if either one of these is an extraneous solution. Okay? So now we need to check to see if any or either or neither are extraneous solutions. So we're going to substitute 3 in. So let's check. 3 minus 4 equals the square root of 3 minus 2. Well, 3 minus 4 is negative 1 equals the square root of 3 minus 2 is 1. Negative 1 does not equal 1, so we would say that x equals 3 is an extraneous solution. Okay? And I'm just abbreviating extraneous solution. Okay? Now let's take a look at 6. So 6 minus 4 equals the square root of 6 minus 2. Well, 6 minus 4 is 2. Equals 6 minus 2 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. So 2 equals 2 checks. So x equals 6 is a solution. Okay, so I'll go and finish up example 4. All right, now let's take a look at example 5. Okay, so we need to square both sides. Okay, now x minus 12 squared is x minus 12 times x minus 12 equals, when you square here, you're multiplying 1 half times 2 is 1, so that's 16x to the first power, which is just 16x. And let's add another line here just in case. All right, so now it's FOIL. X times x is x squared. X times negative 12 is minus 12x minus 12x plus 144 equals 16x. Now we need everything on one side, so we're going to subtract 16x from both sides. Let's add another line. Okay, so then that's x squared minus negative 12 minus 16 is minus 40. So minus 40x. And then, oh, almost, I forgot an x right there. Okay. And then plus 144 equals 0. Okay. So now, we need to find all the combinations that multiply to be 144 and combine to be negative 40. So negative 1 times negative 144 is 144. Okay. Negative 1 minus 144 is negative 150, or 145. That doesn't work. Negative 2 times negative 72 is 144. Negative 2 minus 72 is negative 74. So you can see we're getting closer to negative 40, but we're not there yet. Okay, so negative 3 times negative 48 is 144. Negative 3 minus 48 is negative 51. Getting closer to 50, but not there yet, or 40, so we're not there yet. So now let's try negative 4 times negative 36 is positive 144. Negative 4 minus 36 is negative 40. That works. So our factors are x minus 4, x minus 36 equal to 0. Okay. So we set that equal to 0. So x minus 4 equal to 0 and x minus 36 equal to 0. So x equals 4. And we're going to leave space just in case it's extreme solution. And x equals 36. Okay. So now let's check. 4 minus 12 equals, and I can change this to the square root. So square root of 16 times 4. Well, 4 minus 12 is negative 8. And then the square root of 16 times 4 is 8. Negative 8 does not equal 8, so this is an extraneous solution. Okay, now let's try 36. So 36 minus 12 equals the square root of 16 times 36. Okay, well, 36 minus 12 is 24 equals the square root of 36 times 16 is 24. So this checks. Okay, so this is a solution. All right, go ahead and finish up example 5. Let's take a look at example 6. Okay, now we need to isolate the square root first. We're going to subtract 8 from both sides. So we get the square root of x equals negative 6. Let's fix that square root a little bit. Okay, now we're going to square both sides. When you square a negative, it has to be in parentheses. The square root of x squared becomes x, and then negative 6 squared is 36. So now let's check. The square root of 36 plus 8 equals 2. Okay. Well, the square root of 36 is 6. 6 plus 8 is 14. 14 does not equal 2. So this is an extraneous solution. Okay. All right, let's take a look at example 7. Okay. Now we're going to square both sides. Okay, so that's x plus 4 equals, now that's 5 x minus 20 to the 1/2 times 5 x minus 20 to the 1/2. So then you have x plus 4 equals 5 times 5 is 25. When you multiply, you add exponents. So 1/2 is 1, so that's x minus 20 to the 1 power. So that's just x minus 20. Okay, just distributed 25, so that's x plus 4 equals 25x minus 500. Now we're going to add. Let's see how I want to do this. Yep, let's add 500 to both sides and subtract x from both sides. So when we do that, we get those cancel. You're left with 504 equals 24x. Divide both sides by 24. 21 equals x. Okay, so now we need to check. So we're going to substitute 21 back in. So that's square root of 21 plus 4 equals 5 times the square root of 24 minus 20. Well, that's 25 squared. 25 is 5 equals 5 times. Oh, wait a second. I put 24. The answer is 21. Where did that 24 come from? There you go. So 21 minus 20 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1 times 5 is 5. This checks. So 21 equals x is your solution. Okay, so finish up example 7. Let's take a look at example 8. All right, so we're going to square both sides. And I'm going to rewrite this as x plus 4. So that's x plus 4 times x plus 4 equals x plus 4. For that, so you get x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16 equals x plus 4. Now we're going to subtract x and subtract 4 from both sides. So you have 8x. Well, first of all, we have x squared. That's going to stay the same. But if you have 8x and subtract x, you're plus 7x. And if you're 16 subtract 4, you're at plus 12 equals 0. Okay. Now you want to solve this by factoring. We know x and x makes x squared. And let's think about finding the combination. So let's try all the combinations to make 12. So 1 times 12 is 12. 1 plus 12 is 13. That didn't work. 2 times 6 equals 12. 2 plus 6 equals 8. That didn't work. 3 times 4 equals 12. 3 plus 4 equals 7. This works. So our factors are x plus 3, x plus 4. So x plus 3 equals 0. X plus 4 equals 0. Subtract 3 from both sides. X equals negative 3. Subtract 4 from both sides. X equals negative 4. So now I'm going to check. So let's substitute negative 3 in first. So 4 minus 3 equals the square root of negative 3 plus 4. Well, that's 1 equals 1. That checks. And let's substitute negative 4. And so 4 minus 4 equals the square root of negative 4 plus 4. That equals 0 equals 0. So that checks. So both of these values are solutions. Okay, so if you would finish up your examples, start working on your assignment, and have a wonderful Wildcat day.